The next speaker is Haim Harari, who is unfortunately not here for health reasons. Haim Harari was the president of the Weizmann Institute and served with Jacob Zev in many committees. So he sent us something that is recorded. We'll see that, and then we'll have the family representative, Noam Ziv, respond and have some reflections.
Dear members of the Academy, dear friends, dear colleagues, and the Ziv family, it's a great honor to be invited to remember Jacob Ziv, one of the great scientists and scientific leaders of Israel. We knew each other 45 years, approximately half of his life, and we didn't share the same field of science, but we shared the responsibility of making science policy in Israel in different ways in different places. Jacob was born in a world which was very different to the world in which he operated later when he was a scientific leader. He was born in a world that science was science and was exciting, beneficial, interesting to those who exercised it, but did not really make or break economies, continents, countries, anything. And the world turned into something completely else in the years that Jacob was having to exercise leadership and make decisions. Science began to influence science, engineering, technology, information flow, economy, management, defense, education, and almost everything else. And a scientist who found himself in a position of decision-making had to have fingers and taste of every one of these items. And some contributed in a totally unexpected way to some of this field without even dreaming that they one day will do it. And Jacob was one of these people, and there were others, but this was really the thread that was going through the life of scientific leaders in this century. The impact of science on the rest of the world is not always good. It is wonderful when it cures people from diseases, when it helps us to create new things, when it does all sorts of beneficial things. But it's very bad when it does other things, from pollution to wars and from anything negative that you can think of, to evil things which appear to be very good. And that's a whole subject by itself, which we will not discuss today, but that is something that you have to worry about when you are occupying positions like the ones that Jacob did. So, with all of that background, Jacob was, for decades, holding responsible position in the Technion, as vice president and other positions. He was then the chairman of the PBC, the Planning and Budgeting Committee, which is the body in Israel, which makes all the decision about distributing resources to all the universities, and which allows or disallows the creation of new departments, new universities, new colleges, and new programs. So Jacob was the head of that, and then he was the president of our National Academy, which is hosting us this evening to remember him. While all of this was happening, I had the honor and the privilege of communicating with him and collaborating with him in several capacities which were more or less similar, not identical, but we are not talking about me, we are talking about him tonight. And that kind of collaboration taught both of us that there are ways of advancing science and its impact on other items that will try to contribute positively on the long time scale. and not just make a very useful decision for tomorrow or the day after. And Jacob excels in this. He was never pulling his gun and shooting in all directions without thinking. He was always very thoughtful, he was always very honest, he was always very careful, and he was usually achieving his goals by this very positive method. He was a person who participated also as a scientist in creating a bridge among different disciplines and different items. Now, I'm not going to talk about his science for two reasons. A, because there were already several presentations in this event today describing his scientific work by colleagues who know it. And the other reason is because I am not competent enough to discuss his scientific work, because my field, particle physics, is completely different from what he did. But I want to use this opportunity to give you an example how two completely different fields can influence each other in a way which is both beneficial and terrible, and creating completely new scientific environment. And just trying to do it in a few words, I would say, particle physics, which looks at the fundamental building blocks of the world, as a tool created the World Wide Web, which is really the essence of the internet. It also created other fields which are important to medicine, and we will not discuss them here, and that is like computerized tomography and MRI, both of which emerged from particle physics, but we are not producing now propaganda for particle physics. We are talking about Jacob Ziv and information theory. Information theory is as unlikely as to influence the daily work and also the politics of the world as particle physics. But particle physics created the World Wide Web, and the work of Jacob Ziv, together with Abraham Lempel, created the Ziv-Lempel idea, or the Ziv-Lempel theory, or the Ziv-Lempel procedure, to transmit data in a much faster way on the networks. And the World Wide Web that was created by one sort of irrelevant field of science to it has benefited by the other invention of Ziv and Lempel that allowed it to be much faster. And why is this important beyond the scientific discovery? I'll say it only in two sentences. One of the most negative aspects of the World Wide Web and the social networks and the internet is the push to extremism, is the fact that it sends people to simplified one sentence or one paragraph description of complex problems which really should require a lot of thinking and quite an elaborate expressions. And this is summarized in the infamous expression or acronym TLDR, which is too long, didn't read. That's what you write to yourself or to your friends when they send you a wonderful article of 3 pages describing a process in a wonderful way, and you only read the artificial intelligence summary of 2 lines, or you are too lazy to read the whole thing, or you're too busy to read the whole thing because on that same day you got 25 other such articles. So you say 2 LDR, and essentially that means I'm not going to bother about it because I know that that subject is either wonderful or terrible. It cannot be in between, because if it's in between, it cannot be described in one sentence. And all you know about it is this one sentence. And the acronym TLDR, you will be surprised, even has a Hebrew translation. It is, I call it Amalek. It is in Hebrew, Aroch Midai Lo Karati, Aleph Mem Lamed Kuf. which could be Amlak or anything else in Hebrew, but I prefer to call it Amalek because that gives you some idea about the quality and the importance and the damage of this concept. So Amalek and TLDR are the twin translations from one language to another of this business. So the world of TLDR, in which we live, even though many of us are never using this and don't know this acronym, is a world which is not good and which was created with good intention by scientists that created the World Wide Web. On the other hand, to create a method that transmits information, data, text, pictures faster allows you a better way to transmit entire discussions, longer messages, and not translate a 60-minute article or a TV program into 60 seconds just because you cannot do it fast enough. And the Ziv-Lempel idea and the Ziv-Lempel theory is one of the leading items which are still used now, decades after it was invented, in this field to help us solve this problem or at least reduce the impact of it and show that the world is not so good and not as bad as we think it is, because many things have different faces and they are so-and-so, but also so-and-so, and under this circumstance are so-and-so, etc. So this is just one little story about how the excellent work of Ziv and Lempel is interacting with work from a completely different field, particle physics, which incidentally I never participated in this business. I'm just using it as a reference. And these two fields, which never thought about influencing politics in such a way, had such a contact which is changing our life. But this science is only a small part of what Jacob Ziv did. He was, as I've said, a vice president of the Technion, chairman of the BBC, president of the Academy, and in all of this, he had an impact on important decisions of science policy, of scientific education, and we will remember these contributions and appreciate them as long as we exist, all of us who knew Jacob. So to his family and to his friends and to all of us who admired him, it's a great honor to remember him tonight. Thank you.